morning and welcome to Sacramento Children's Museum Storytime. I'm your storyteller, Miss Molly. Today we are going to be talking about Dia de los Muertos, which translates to Day of the Dead. And this is a celebration that originated in Mexico, but has since spread all throughout South America and is celebrated in the United States as well. So we're going to read a little story. First of all, I'd like to tell you about what we have going on right here. This is a tradition from Dia de los Muertos. It is the ofrenda, which is an altar that gives offerings to the ancestors who have passed on. So you would find things like pictures of relatives who are gone, and marigolds and sugar skulls, which we're going to talk a little bit more about later, and candles to light the path, and very frequently you would have plates of food like the special pan de muerta and bananas and oranges. So if the ancestors, when they arrive after their long journey, they're hungry, they have something to eat. So the ofrenda is all about celebrating and providing for your ancestors who are no longer with us. So we're going to read a little story, and it is called The Dead Family Diaz. This book is by P.J. Bracegirdle and pictures by Polly Bernatine. The Dead Family Diaz. Morning came as the dead sun chased off the dead moon. All across the land of the dead, everyone's spirits were high. Rise and shine, sleepy skulls, Mrs. Diaz called. Breakfast is getting cold. Huevos muertos, cheered Estrellita. Yum! Angelito looked at his plate miserably. Today was the Day of the Dead when his family would walk among the living, and Angelito was feeling scared. Did I tell you how the living have big red tongues and bulging eyes? His sister jabbered. And if you touch one, they feel all hot and squishy. Ew, gasped Angelito, turning whiter than ever. He's already pretty white, isn't he? Mrs. Diaz hushed her daughter. Shh, the living are our friends, she said. And this is the one time of year that everyone gets together to celebrate. But were they really hot and squishy? Angelito listened in horror to his sister's stories about Halloween, when the living put out fiery-eyed pumpkins to scare the dead away. Except it never works, cracked Estrellita. The Day of the Dead is nothing like Halloween, Angelito's father insisted. Now eat up. We don't want to be late. Angelito fed his breakfast to Dante. Here's this little dog, Dante. While Estrellita chomped away. Finally, the family piled into the car. I told you we should have left earlier, Mr. Diaz grumbled. Just look at this traffic. Nearby, a large crowd was waiting for the elevator to the land of the living. The dead were getting restless. See, they already have a big party started before they even get on the elevator. Remember I said that the ancestors were taking a journey to reach the ofrenda to celebrate with the living? This is what they're getting ready to do right now, to make their journey to their family's ofrendas in the land of the living. Quit pushing, numbskull! Tell it to the zombies at the back. Jostled and shoved, the Diaz family squeezed into a packed elevator. Up and up they went until, ding, the doors finally opened. Wonder what they're going to see on the other side of those doors. Welcome to the land of the living, a booming voice shouted. Tierra de los vivos, that's the land of the living. Pushed into the bright world beyond, Angelito froze. Where were his parents? Shouting people, chiming bells, and blaring music drowned out his calls. He darted through the crowd searching, but his family was nowhere to be found. Finally, Angelito arrived at a quiet square. Spotting a friendly-looking skull, he asked, "You didn't see a man and a woman and a bone-headed girl wearing too much jaw gloss pass by, did you?" The boy laughed but shook his head. Angelito began to slump away. "I'm Pablo, by the way," the boy called. "Did you happen to see any of them yet?" Them? He means the living, Angelito thought. He told Pablo all about the terrible shouting he'd heard near the elevators. "They must be getting ready to attack," whispered Pablo. "Let's get out of here." Have you noticed anything interesting about Pablo yet? We'll see. The pair scrambled behind a fruit and vegetable stand where Angelito came up with a plan. They'd tip over the boxes of cherries so their enemies would slip. "And then we can finish them off with these," Pablo suggested, handing over a few tomatoes. Before long, they heard an angry crowd approaching. "Get ready," whispered Angelito. "Aim." "Wait! Hold your fire!" cried Pablo. It wasn't a mob at all, but a parade full of banging drums and blasting trumpets. Still, Pablo warned that some of them might be hiding in it. "Maybe we should keep our masks on, just in case." "Masks?" laughed the skeleton boy. "What masks?" "These ones, silly," said Pablo, reaching for Angelito's face. "Hey, you're as cold as a popsicle." "And you've got bulging eyes," cried Angelito. "I think they're discovering something about each other." "Ah! You're one of them!" they both shouted. So he thought he was a real skeleton, and he thought he was a real boy wearing a skeleton mask, and they were both wrong. So let's find out what happens next. Angelito took off, tearing down the streets and alleyways without looking back. Out of breath, he finally stopped. Had he really been playing with a living boy that whole time? How freaky! He shuddered. How icky! How awful! But how incredibly fun, he had to admit. Except now he was alone again. Maybe he shouldn't have run off so fast. Feeling glum, Angelito wandered around the deserted town until he found himself at the cemetery gates. Inside, a big party was going on. There was a loud bark. "Dante!" Angelito cried, rushing over to his family. They were reunited. They found each other at the Cementerio Municipal. Mrs. Diaz squeezed her son so tightly he thought he might crack. Angelito told them how he'd gotten lost and been looking for them all day. "We're just glad you're safe," sighed his father. "Now let's get to the buffet. I'm ready to stuff my rib cage." And where do you think they're going to find the buffet? On the ofrenda. Estrellita slid up to her brother. "Oh, I bet you were so scared," she whispered gleefully. "All alone in the land of the living." "Actually, I wasn't alone," Angelito said. And then, spotting a familiar face, the dead boy discovered that he didn't need guts to be brave. "Hey, Pablo, wait up," Angelito called. The living boy turned. Then a big smile crossed his face. "Sorry for saying you had bulging eyes," said Angelito. "Sorry for calling you a popsicle," Pablo replied. "So we're cool again?" Angelito asked, grinning a big skeleton grin. Pablo winked. "Cool as your bones." That's pretty cool, I think. Angelito told Pablo all the things Estrellita had said to make him scared of the living. "She's okay mostly," he admitted, "but sometimes she can be a real knucklebone." "Maybe she just needs to meet a real living boy up close," Pablo said. I think this is shaping up to maybe be a little bit of a prank. So Estraíta got a little bit of hers back, didn't she? The dead moon had already chased off the dead sun by the time the Dead Family Diaz returned home. Bone-tired, Angelito headed to bed, where he dreamed sweet dreams.